She was quietly crying behind the breakroom door. What she didn't know was that the man listening was the undercover CEO of the entire restaurant chain. Julian Merritt pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant around 6:45 p.m. A Friday night, usually the busiest. He turned off the ignition of his black Ford Explorer, leaned back in his seat, and just stared at the building through the windshield for a moment. The neon sign above the entrance glowed faintly. Merritt's table, the name he'd once scribbled on a napkin 10 years ago. He wasn't dressed like a CEO, no blazer, no tie, just a grey hoodie, fitted jeans, and sneakers. If someone looked close, they might notice the watch. But no one did. And that's what he liked. Inside, the restaurant had the usual Friday night rhythm. Families talking over fried catfish, couples sharing plates of mac and cheese, kids dipping hush puppies in sauce. The smell of hot grease and Cajun spice clung to the air. He walked in with no reservation, no fanfare. The hostess, a high school kid with tired eyes, barely looked up. "Just one?" Julian nodded. "Bar's full? Booth okay?" "That's fine." She led him past rows of guests, toward a corner booth with a partial view of the kitchen doors. He sat, settled in, and scanned the room like a man looking for nothing in particular. But he saw everything. The manager, white button-down, chest puffed like a rooster, stood by the bar, arms crossed, barking instructions to the bartender. A tall waitress in worn shoes hurried past with 2 trays. She looked about 22, maybe 23. A second waiter tripped over a chair leg. The manager glared, but didn't help. Julian noticed how no one smiled unless they were serving, how the staff whispered more than they talked, how one busboy kept glancing nervously toward the back. He pulled out a notepad, not to write, just to touch something familiar. Years ago, he used to keep track of sauces and spice levels on that pad. Now it stayed in his back pocket like a relic. His server was a young man named Deshawn, friendly, polite, and moving fast. "Hey man, thanks for your patience. Water, bread, menu. You good?" Julian nodded, kept his tone casual. "All good. Appreciate you." Deshawn grinned. "Friday crowd's brutal sometimes, but you came at a good time. Want me to start you off with anything?" Julian ordered the shrimp and grits with a side of greens, handed the menu back, and watched Deshawn disappear behind the kitchen door. The sound of the restaurant was steady, but there was a tension beneath it, like a pressure valve just barely holding. Julian leaned forward, pretending to scroll through his phone, but his eyes stayed alert. Near the dish station, a young woman with braids and tired shoulders filled water pitchers. She kept looking over her shoulder like someone was behind her. When the manager passed, she stood up straighter. When he left, her shoulders dropped again. The restaurant had been open for 8 months. This was its 3rd location, in Jackson, Mississippi. Julian had picked it for sentimental reasons. His grandfather was born here. It felt full circle. But now, sitting in the booth with a front-row view to the staff dynamics, Julian felt something tugging at him. A small, gnawing sense that the values he'd built his company on weren't reaching the floor. The food arrived hot. Deshawn made sure he had everything. "Anything else I can get you?" Julian smiled. "Nope. You're doing great." Deshawn gave a small nod and moved on. Julian took one bite, then another. The taste was there. The recipe hadn't changed, but something about the experience felt off. He couldn't name it yet. Not exactly. He wiped his mouth, took a sip of water, and was about to signal for the check when something changed. A faint sound. It didn't match the clatter and conversation around him. He froze. It was coming from down the hallway near the back, where the employee lockers were. Not loud, but clear enough. Someone was crying. But instead of getting up to leave, Julian stood and followed the sound. The hallway smelled like old fryer oil and lemon cleaner. Julian moved slowly, each step quiet against the worn tile. He didn't want to startle anyone. He wasn't supposed to be back here, not as a customer anyway. But that sound had pulled something deep out of him. A soft, shaky voice echoed behind the breakroom door, half open. It was muffled, but not enough to miss the emotion. I can't do it anymore, Tash, the voice said. I'm trying, but he treats me like trash, like I'm lucky just to be here. Julian stopped just short of the doorway. He didn't peer in. He stood still, listening. It wasn't about eavesdropping. It was about understanding, because something in that voice felt familiar. Not the voice itself, but the exhaustion in it. Inside, 2 women sat by the lockers. One of them, the one speaking, was the waitress from earlier, the one with the worn shoes and tired shoulders. Ariel Knox, according to her name tag. She sat hunched over with her hands in her lap, sleeves rolled to the elbows, eyes puffy from trying not to cry too loudly. Next to her, a stocky kitchen worker with short twists. Tasha, apparently, sat with her arm resting on Ariel's shoulder. I asked for my overtime from last week. He said I had attitude. I work doubles 3 days a week, and I still go home with less than what they promised. Ariel sniffled, rubbed her face with her sleeve. And now he's talking about writing me up for speaking out of turn when he humiliated Danny in front of a whole table. Tasha shook her head. He ain't nothing but a bully in khakis. You didn't do anything wrong. Danny just dropped a tray. It happens. He made him cry. Ariel whispered. Grown man, crying in the walk-in. And now everyone's scared to say anything, 'cause Brent's watching us like hawks. Brent? The name landed like lead in Julian's stomach. Julian took a step back, careful not to make noise. He didn't want them to know he'd heard. Not yet. Not until he could do something about it. He walked back toward the main floor slowly, heart heavy, mind racing. This was the kind of thing he'd promised himself wouldn't happen. His restaurants were supposed to be different, built on respect, on equity, on heart. He sat back in his booth, staring blankly at the plate he'd barely touched. Deshawn walked past again. Everything all right? Julian looked up. You ever had issues with the manager here? Deshawn hesitated, eyes narrowing. What do you mean? Just asking. Deshawn lowered his voice. You didn't hear this from me, but Brent's not easy to work under, especially if you're new, or if you say anything he don't like. Julian nodded slowly. You ever had to go to HR about him? Deshawn gave a tight smile. HR's not here on Fridays. That said it all. Julian stood up, left some cash on the table, and walked toward the back again. But not to leave. This time, he headed for the office. The small door near the employee bathroom had a printed sign taped to it. Manager only. He knocked once, firmly. No answer. He knocked again. Finally, the door opened. Brent Allister. Early 40s. Dress shirt, faded name tag, Bluetooth in one ear. His smile was the kind that didn't reach his eyes. Sir, this area's for staff only. Dining rooms that way. Julian's tone was calm, controlled. Let's have a word, in the office. Brent raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? Julian held his gaze. I said, in the office. Brent looked him up and down, confused, trying to place the face. Still didn't recognize him. I don't have time for... Julian reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out his wallet, opened it, showed the company card, the one with his full name, logo, and title. Julian Merritt, founder, CEO. Brent's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Julian motioned with his head. Inside. But Brent didn't know yet that the worst part wasn't the conversation. They hadn't even started. The office was cramped. Desk piled with receipts, a corkboard with outdated schedules, 2 mismatched chairs. Julian took the one facing the door. Brent stood, arms crossed, shifting uncomfortably like a student caught cheating on a test. I didn't know you were coming, Brent said, voice thin, eyes darting toward the hallway like he was hoping for an interruption. That was the point, Julian replied. Brent let out a nervous chuckle. Look, if there's an issue, I'd appreciate some context. We've been running things fine here. Got great Yelp reviews. We hit our monthly target last week. Julian kept his tone even. I just heard one of our staff crying behind the lockers because she's afraid to work here. Brent blinked. His expression changed, but not to concern. More like calculation. Staff complain, Julian. It happens. I manage a tight ship. Can't have people taking advantage of company time. Who's taking advantage? Ariel? Julian asked. Brent hesitated. She's emotional. Good worker, but young. Gets rattled. I've been helping her toughen up. Julian leaned back. By threatening her job? Publicly embarrassing her co-workers? Brent's mouth opened to respond, but Julian raised a hand. Don't lie. I already know. I've been watching. Silence stretched for a beat too long. Julian didn't fill it. He let it hang. I didn't mean to make anyone feel uncomfortable. Brent mumbled. I just run a disciplined environment. We're in the South. People show up with bad work habits sometimes. Julian stiffened. I know exactly where I am, Brent, and I built this company here for a reason. You think I don't understand the people walking through that door every shift? Brent swallowed hard. Julian stood up, not to loom, just to make it clear the conversation was over. You're going home early tonight. Brent raised an eyebrow. What? Clock out. Go home. I'll handle the rest. Brent didn't argue, didn't push back, just nodded slowly and walked out. But he still didn't get it. He thought this was temporary, a slap on the wrist. Julian stepped out of the office and looked around. The hallway was quiet again. Somewhere, the kitchen hummed with prep orders, the sizzle of oil, and the clatter of plates. Normal sounds, but they felt different now. He walked past the dish pit. That's where he spotted Danny. Thin, maybe 19, wiping down trays, his face flushed from steam and effort. Julian paused. You, Danny? Danny looked up, startled. Yeah? Julian extended a hand. I'm Julian. Danny didn't take it right away. Then, slowly, he wiped his hands and reached out. Nice to meet you, sir. Julian nodded toward the kitchen. Brent give you a hard time the other night? Danny nodded. I dropped a tray. My hands were wet. He yelled at me in front of table 6. Said I was embarrassing the brand. Told me I should go work at a gas station. Julian clenched his jaw but didn't speak right away. You like working here? He asked after a pause. Danny shrugged. I like the people. Ariel watches out for me. So does Tash. But, yeah, it's hard. Julian patted his shoulder. Thank you for telling me. He kept walking. Through the kitchen. Through the prep station. He saw a cook, middle-aged, limping slightly, still working a hot line with 3 orders going. No one said anything to him. No one offered to help. He was pushing through. Julian stopped him. What happened to your leg? The man looked surprised. Old injury. Gets worse when I stand all day. But I'm good. You ask for accommodations? Couple times. Brent said if I can't handle the line, there's the door. Julian closed his eyes for half a second. He had enough. He stepped back into the hallway, pulled out his phone, and texted his executive assistant, Lynn Carter. Emergency meeting. Monday morning. Full audit on Jackson location. I'll explain. Then he walked toward the break room again. This time, he didn't stop outside the door. He knocked gently and opened it. Ariel and Tasha turned sharply. Julian gave them a calm, steady look. Can we talk? But Ariel didn't know yet that the man standing in the doorway was about to turn everything upside down. The break room fell silent the moment Julian stepped inside. Ariel's eyes were still red, her expression frozen somewhere between embarrassment and confusion. Tasha's arms instinctively crossed, protective. Julian offered a soft but direct tone. I'm not here to judge. I just want to hear the truth. Neither woman spoke. I'm Julian Merritt, he said, founder of this place. I came unannounced, watched, listened, and now I'm asking you to tell me, in your own words, what's really happening here. Ariel blinked, processing. You, he nodded. And I'd appreciate it if you could be honest with me. No sugarcoating. Tasha looked at Ariel, then back at Julian. He really is. Ariel shifted in her seat. I don't want to get anyone fired. I didn't know who else to talk to. Julian sat down across from them, elbows on his knees. Let's not worry about firings. Just truth. Ariel took a deep breath. Brent treats people like tools. The ones he likes get time off, better shifts, better tables. The rest of us, If we're late by 2 minutes, it's right up city. If we ask questions, he tells us we have attitude, Tasha added. He started cutting hours from people he thinks talk too much. Some of the kitchen guys barely get 3 shifts a week now, and when we bring up problems, it's always the same line. You don't like it, leave. Julian listened quietly, his jaw still, his breathing even. And the customers? Ariel continued. We're told to smile, serve, and shut up. Even if they treat us like garbage, Brent always takes the customer's side. Every time. Tasha leaned in. Ariel works the hardest out of all of us. Double shifts. Comes in early, stays late. You ask anyone out there, she doesn't slack. And Brent rides her like she's some kind of rookie. Julian nodded slowly. How long has this been going on? Since he started. 2 months after we opened. Ariel replied. We hoped it'd pass. We needed the job. Julian leaned back and let out a long breath. You shouldn't have to tolerate disrespect to keep a paycheck. Ariel looked up. Then why does it happen so much? Julian didn't answer right away. That question cut deeper than she probably knew. He'd hired Brent, approved him, trusted his resume, his interviews, the references, and he hadn't checked in once in 8 months. Maybe the real failure wasn't Brent. It was him. He stood. I'm making changes. Effective now. Ariel looked uncertain. What kind of changes? Julian gave a soft smile. Ones that start with listening and end with accountability. He walked out of the break room and made his way through the kitchen again. The staff stole glances, some curious, some worried. Word had started to spread. The CEO was here. And he wasn't smiling. Julian went to the front of the house. The dining room was still buzzing, people eating, talking, completely unaware that just beyond the kitchen door, a shift in power had begun. He tapped Deshawn on the shoulder. Can you do me a favor? Sure. Quietly let everyone clocked in tonight know there'll be a short team meeting at closing. Paid time. I'll handle it. Deshawn raised an eyebrow, then nodded. Got it. Julian stood by the entrance, arms folded, watching. Brent emerged a few minutes later, face tight, walking toward the door without saying a word. Some of the staff noticed. Others pretended not to. Julian didn't stop him, not in front of everyone. Let him go. Let him stew. The real work started after the exit. But the part the staff didn't expect was that the man replacing Brent wasn't someone new. The restaurant closed just after 11 p.m. The last table left with takeout boxes, and the kitchen began winding down. Pans scrubbed, aprons folded, trash taken out in heavy bags that thudded against the back door. Inside the dining room, Julian waited near the host stand as staff gathered around. No one was quite sure what to expect. Ariel lingered near the back, her arms crossed tight across her chest. Danny leaned on a mop handle, still in his dish gloves. Tasha stood near the edge of the group, watching Julian closely. He raised his hand. Thanks for staying. I know you're tired, and I won't keep you long. But I want to be clear about something. His voice was steady, but quiet enough that everyone had to lean in a little. This place carries my name, my family's name. I started Merritt's Table with one location and a borrowed stove, and I built it on a simple idea. Good food, good people, and a fair place to work. He looked around. Somewhere between the paperwork and the profit margins, I forgot to keep my eyes on the floor. That's my mistake. Silence. No one moved. A few heads nodded. I saw enough tonight to know things aren't being run the way I intended. People being talked down to, punished for speaking up, pressured to stay silent. That stops now. There was a quiet stir through the group. Julian continued. I'm not here to scare anybody. I'm here to listen and fix what's broken. One person at a time. Starting tonight. He motioned toward the back. I'll be here for the next couple hours. I'd like to speak to each of you. Alone. 5 minutes. Just your truth. No consequences. Ariel's brows furrowed. Really? Julian nodded. Really? This is off the record, but not off the radar. Tasha smirked at that, arms still folded. He added, If you've ever worked a job where your voice didn't matter, this ain't that place anymore. The staff broke off into small clusters, murmuring. Deshawn was the first to step forward. Inside the manager's office, he sat across from Julian, hat off, fingers fidgeting. "I like working here, man," he said. "I've worked worse jobs, but I kept my head down because Brent made it feel like speaking up would get me cut. I've seen 3 people disappear from the schedule just for asking questions." Julian scribbled in a small black notebook. "Anyone else you think I should talk to who might be afraid?" Julian asked. Deshawn thought. "Maybe Keisha. She's quiet, but she sees everything. Thank you." Next came Keisha, then Tasha, then Danny. Each one different. Some angry, some scared. But they all shared one thing, the need to be heard. Keisha talked about how the schedule kept changing last minute, making it impossible for her to find a second job or get childcare. Tasha talked about Brent making personal comments, about weight, hair, clothes, said she'd started eating lunch in her car just to avoid him. Danny admitted he thought about quitting 3 times in the last month, said he stayed because of Ariel. Every story chipped away at Julian's silence. He didn't argue, didn't excuse, just listened. And when Ariel finally walked in and closed the door, she didn't sit right away. She looked at him like she wasn't sure whether to thank him or curse him. "You really didn't know?" Julian shook his head. "I didn't." "Then why are you taking it personal?" He thought for a second. "Because I started this to give people like you something better, and I hate the thought that I became just another boss who stopped paying attention." She sat down across from him. "So what now?" Julian leaned forward. "Now I rebuild the trust. One shift at a time." Ariel studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. Not approval, just recognition. Like she was willing to watch what happened next. But Julian knew that words meant nothing if the next morning felt like just another day. Monday morning came without fanfare. The sun burned through the haze above Jackson, and the restaurant stayed closed until noon. A handwritten sign taped to the door read, "We're opening late today for staff development. Thank you for your patience." Inside, Julian arrived early. No hoodie this time. Button up, sleeves rolled. Still no entourage, just a binder under one arm, a black notebook under the other. He wasn't here to perform. He was here to clean up. By 8:15 a.m. everyone had shown up. Some dressed for work, others in casual clothes, uncertain of what this staff development meant. They gathered in the dining room again, a bit more alert this time. There were whispers, eyes darting toward the front of the room. Some looked hopeful. Others braced for bad news. Julian stood near the center table, calm and direct. "I want to start by thanking every single one of you who spoke to me Friday night. What you said, what you trusted me with, it matters, and it won't be ignored." He let that sit for a second. "Here's where we start. Brent is no longer with the company." Gasps. A few widened eyes. Ariel looked down at her lap, hiding a small smile. Danny glanced over at Tasha and raised his eyebrows. Julian continued. "There's a new code of conduct going into effect today, one that actually means something. And we're forming a peer committee. That means employees from every role, servers, kitchen staff, dish crew, will help shape how this place is run." A young prep cook raised his hand. "Like a workers' board?" "Exactly," Julian said. "Accountability in both directions. We're not building a company where fear runs the room. If someone abuses their power, they're out. If someone slacks off, they'll be coached, not crushed." He stepped forward. "I've also hired a third-party team to audit payroll. Any overtime you didn't get paid for? We're fixing it. Back pay. Full stop." Now the room started shifting. Stiff shoulders relaxed. Mouths parted. Not in disbelief, but cautious optimism. "And finally," Julian said, "I'll be visiting this location regularly. Not as your boss, just as someone who wants to see you succeed. I won't always give notice. I'll eat here, talk to you, ask questions. You don't owe me smiles. You owe me honesty." One of the bartenders, a lanky man with sleeve tattoos, chuckled. "So, you're gonna spy on us?" Julian grinned. Nah, I'm just going to keep showing up. And if I do it right, you'll stop worrying when I walk in. A small ripple of laughter passed through the room. He looked around again. This isn't about looking good. This is about being better. You all deserve that. And I won't make the mistake of forgetting it again. After the meeting, people lingered. Some chatted. Others stayed back to thank him quietly. A few asked about the peer committee. Julian gave them a clipboard, told them to write their names down. No pressure, just intention. He spent the next hour walking through the kitchen again, this time asking real questions. What worked, what didn't, what tools they needed. The cook with the limp now had a padded mat under his station. Someone had ordered it that morning. Ariel passed him by while restocking menus. Feels different in here today, she said. Julian looked over. Good different or weird different? She thought for a second. Both, he chuckled. I'll take that. Then something happened Julian didn't expect. Danny walked over, still in his dish gloves, carrying a folded note. It's from my mom, he mumbled. She said to give it to the guy who believed me. Julian opened the note. The handwriting was neat, careful. Thank you for seeing my son when someone else tried to make him invisible. Not everyone would. He folded it and slid it into his pocket. That moment didn't need a response. It just needed to be held. But Julian wasn't done. Not until he proved that a second chance means something only when you earn it. 3 weeks later, Julian returned to the Jackson location on a quiet Wednesday morning. No press, no board members. He parked in the same spot, wore the same hoodie. This time it felt intentional. He walked in just after the morning shift started. The place smelled like fresh biscuits and brewed coffee. Calm energy, the kind that didn't feel forced. Ariel was setting up syrup bottles at table 4. She glanced up, recognized him immediately, and gave a short nod. Not one of obligation, but of acknowledgement. Julian smiled back and slid into the same corner booth he'd sat in that first night. Deshawn brought him coffee, black, before he could ask. We got some pecan waffles fresh. Want a plate? Julian grinned. You remembered? First order you made here. I don't forget the good ones. As Deshawn walked off, Julian scanned the room. Keisha was training a new hostess. Danny was at the dish pit again, but this time with headphones on and a small grin on his face. Even the cook with the limp, Julian learned his name was Monty, had a stool at his station now for when things slowed down. Everything didn't look perfect. It wasn't meant to. But it looked human, connected, like the place had a pulse again. Ariel came over during a lull. Still doing surprise visits? Julian chuckled. I like to keep folks guessing. She hesitated. I talked to the new manager. He's decent, said he wants to do things your way. Asked me to help with scheduling. Julian raised an eyebrow. You said yes? Eventually. I figured if someone's going to build the table, they might as well know how to set it right. Julian nodded slowly. Good. You've got leadership in you. Don't waste it waiting for permission. She paused. That something your dad told you? Julian looked out the window for a moment. Nah, it's something I wish somebody told me when I was your age. She didn't say anything more, just gave a small smile and walked back toward the kitchen. Julian watched her go, then reached into his pocket and pulled out Danny's mom's note. He'd kept it folded near his wallet. Read it sometimes when the days got noisy. Someone who believed me. That line stuck with him. Because the truth was, he hadn't always believed people. Not when he was building stores, chasing investors, hiring people like Brent based on polished resumes. Somewhere along the way, he started trusting numbers more than people, processes over voices. But voices built this brand, and ignoring them nearly cracked its foundation. He looked around again. No one clapped when he walked in. No one tried to impress him. And that, to Julian, was the best sign of progress. Before he left, he asked Deshawn for a Sharpie. Walked to the back wall near the breakroom, where an old corkboard hung, usually for notices and shift swaps. He wrote in thick black ink on a fresh white sheet of paper. The The day we stop listening is the day we stop leading. Keep your eyes open, and your ears even more. Julian Merritt. He pinned it dead center. Then he turned, gave a quick wave to the team, and walked out. No speech, no ceremony. Just a quiet departure, like any customer with a full stomach and something on his mind. Outside, he exhaled slowly, watching the cars pass on McWillie Drive. People heading to jobs, school, errands. The world kept moving, but inside that little restaurant, something had shifted. It wasn't just about food. It never was. It was about dignity, listening, ownership, not just of tasks, but of culture. Julian got into his car, pulled out his phone, and opened a blank note. Show up, watch, listen, correct, repeat. He saved it. No title, just a reminder for himself. Because the biggest change he made wasn't firing Brent. It wasn't the audits or the policies. It was remembering that the job of a leader starts with stepping out of the office and into the reality of those you depend on. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that how we treat people matters, even when no one's looking, then do me a favor. Share it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that speak to what we all deserve: respect, fairness, and the courage to do better.